Hello to everyone joining. I am going to let everyone filter in for a bit. We have a lot of registrants, so it looks like people are starting to come in now. And I'll just give it 1 minute before we get started. Okay, looks like we've got enough people to get going here. To everyone out there, my name is Wayne. I'm the founder and CEO of HUTS, and today's a really special time because we get a chance to go over our ADUs and answer some questions that we've heard since releasing them a few months back. And I'll jump right into sharing my screen. I'm going to take probably the first 15 almost 20 minutes to go through some of our most frequently asked questions. And then from there, I'll open it up to Q&A. If you look in the bottom right hand of your screen, you'll see that you can either raise your hand or there's a Q&A chat bubble. Please use the Q&A chat bubble once I'm finished, and I'll try to get to as many of those questions as I can. And after we're finished, we'll send out some of the materials along with a recording of this presentation so you can revisit as we go. Let me share my screen and we'll jump right in. You should all be able to see this. So here we are at our first HUTS ADU webinar. And we're going to answer a few questions here. First, what's HUTS? What are HUTS ADUs? Who are HUTS ADUs designed for? Where can I build my ADU? How do I choose the right plans? I bought plans, so what do I get? I have my plans, now what do I do? Who's going to build my ADU? How much do my ADUs cost to build? And are HUTS ADUs a good investment? And of course, I'm sure you have other questions, and we'll address those as best we can in the Q&A. So first, a bit about HUTS. We're experts in modern housing design, sustainable land development, and placemaking. And to us, that really means 4 things. We bring together 4 offerings that are purpose-built to design and deliver remarkable housing solutions and memorable destinations. The first is really land use and preparation. I'm sure if you've been following along, you see that we have our land listing service where you can source some really excellent buildable parcels. And we help a lot of our clients deliver on groundwork preparation to get them into a build-ready state. Entitlement and delivery, helping to permit our housing designs with our clients and source the build teams to be able to execute on them. Placemaking. More and more, we're working on destinations that have either a hospitality element or a theme, or working with organizations to create a place that's more than just a house, but a bit of an experience. And then last, housing design. And that's really where our ADUs fit within, where we develop designed products and ready-made plans that are very high fidelity, very well vetted, and designed to be executed. And so what are our HUTS ADUs? So first of all, an ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit. So that really means that in its purest purest interpretation, it's accessory to an existing structure. So they're really designed to be able to be plugged into an existing home's utilities. Your existing home already has water and power. How can your ADU kind of siphon off of that? But in our case, we also think of our ADUs as their own small self-sufficient cabin that can operate on its own without necessarily being plugged into another structure. Oh, sorry. Is everyone having a hard time seeing the presentation? Sorry, guys. Let me go back here. Let me know if you can see it now. Yes? Okay, great. Thank you. And Thank you for confirming that the Q&A function works well here. So again, a bit about HUTS, housing design, what are HUTS ADUs, and let's pick up from here. That HUTS are really accessory dwelling units, or HUTS ADUs stand for HUTS accessory dwelling units. They're designed to plug into an existing home's utilities, water, power, the existing infrastructure that your house works off of. But for us, we often think of our ADUs as standalone structures as well, where they have their own utilities and they don't need to be accessory to anything. They're really sort of standalone small homes or small cabins, or that they can be combined into a collection of structures for a larger housing or hospitality solution. And I know some of the folks out there are thinking about using our ADU designs in that way. Our ADUs are based off of a 10-foot by 10-foot grid system. And so all of our framing plans and all of our design system is based off of 10-foot by 10-foot interior spaces or 10-foot by 20-foot interior spaces plus lofts. And they utilize really simple framing techniques that any builder can successfully deliver. For us, this is really important. I know a lot of you are in different parts of the world and different parts of the country with different sort of housing requirements, building requirements, and we try to standardize a lot of our structural systems so that any builder almost anywhere can be successful in working on a HUTS ADU design. Our ADUs are available in 4 models: the little cottage, the bunkhouse, the cottage, and the entertainer. And they really range from the most efficient to the most spacious. So from the little cottage, where we're being very economical with space, up to the entertainer, where it's a little bit more airy. It's a little lighter on available sleeping spaces and bigger on living spaces. And our ADUs can be serviced by town utilities or be totally off-grid. And we've accounted for both of those systems. They are detailed with material palettes designed for mountain, country, or coastal settings. And we really thought a lot about where we think these might go and how to create an exterior system that feels contextual to that area and also easily maintained in that region. So who are HUTS ADUs designed for? Probably you. If you're here, you're probably thinking about it in the way that we think about it. And we came to this conclusion on who these are for really by talking to thousands of folks looking for economical housing solutions, whether they be extra spaces or small scale standalone homes. And so everyone from homesteaders, people first starting to understand their lot and they want to build something small to get to understand their parcel. People with large lots where they don't want to extend their utilities all the way to, say, an interesting feature, whether it be a distant waterfall or a distant grove of trees, but they do want to build something off grid in that area. Somebody who just needs a guest room for their existing structure. Somebody who's waiting on construction for their main house, and they want to have a place to start enjoying their land and getting close to nature before they build their larger home. People who just want to add rental income and some passive income to their property. Folks that are seeking no debt on their home ownership, where they really want to purchase a smaller structure and build it without any mortgage. Folks who want to build their own home. People who are interested in off-grid living, and then folks who need an additional space that isn't in their existing house, whether it be a music studio, an art studio, a maker studio. And then also folks who are looking at operating as closer to a hotelier or a camp or sort of an organization that's going to have multiple structures. So if you fit into one of these categories, I think you might be in the right place. And where can I build my ADU? And again, where you live, most likely you can build a HUTS ADU. And that's because we've designed our ADUs to the standards required by the rough conditions of the high peaks region of the Adirondacks. That was the goal that we chose to hit. If we wanted to build this relatively high altitude in the Adirondacks, what sort of structural system, what sort of insulating system would we have to put in place? And so we have really robust framing designed for 70 pounds per square foot of snow loads. And if you look at this map here on the right, you see a map of New York State. Now, very, very high altitude at almost 3,500 square feet or 3,500 feet 3,000 feet up, you'll get into 80 pounds per square foot snow loads. It's likely not all that practical that you would build these there, but everywhere else in New York State, Catskills, Hudson Valley, over towards the Great Lakes, and everywhere else in between, our ADUs are more than sufficient at handling any possible snow load. And because of that, that also means that they work really well for almost anywhere in the country. So only in the orangey red area that you see in the far northern moosey regions of Maine and some of the high peaks of the Adirondacks do you see some of that red where we're over 70 pounds per square foot. Everywhere else in the country, our structural system accounts for those conditions. And then the other part in, just one second. The other thing that's important here on, sorry, just the Q&A thing is blocking me, so I just want to remove that. There we go. The other thing that's important here is R values and insulating properties. And so here you see the purple regions are very, very extreme conditions, can get down to -50. You would need to bump up the insulation that we have in our standard documentation. But we account for everything from zone 6 and below, which almost anywhere someone would want to build, and anywhere in the regions that we primarily service in the Hudson Valley and Catskills, we have more than accounted for the required R values for the wall insulation and ceiling insulation. So a few questions. Let me just stop sharing here for a second. Share one more time. There we go. So a few questions you're likely going to want to ask your local planning board. If you're in an urban application, say on the West Coast, the idea of an ADU is quite popular in LA, Portland, Seattle. You most likely will be able to build one of our designs, but you're going to have to check with the town zoning codes in your municipality and understand the exact build conditions. Most important in an urban use is going to be offset, and if ADUs and small short-term rentals are allowed in your region. There is such a thing across the country called special wind conditions, where there's wildly high wind speeds. And in those places, you're going to want to consult with your local planning office and likely a local structural engineer to make sure that we're achieving all of the shear loads required to hit code in that area. Seismic regions, similar idea. If you're in near the fault lines in California, say, you're going to want to understand what the footing conditions are going to have to be, and making sure that our foundation system is appropriate. And then if you're under 144 square feet, like our little cottage, often you require no permit at all, depending on the use and systems. And so that's something to just gut check against your planning office and see if that's true. So how do I choose the right plans? You're going to start by going into our form, and the easiest way to find our form is from the link in our bio in Instagram, and we'll also send it out here. And I think if you've signed up or registered for this webinar, you've also received where you can start that purchase. And really, you're going to go through three main decisions. The first is choosing the right model, and between our four models, we think about a number of ways to organize them to find the one that fits your use best. So the first is to look at the number of sleeping areas. So from the bunkhouse down to the little cottage, we go from the most number of sleeping areas down to the fewest. In the bunkhouse, it's really about creating as many sleeping areas as possible. Upstairs in the loft, we have kind of two dedicated sleeping areas, both of which fit queen rooms. We have a downstairs dedicated bedroom, and you could have a pull-out couch to even boost it more. In the cottage, you have two dedicated sleeping areas. You can easily sleep 4 plus a pull-out couch. The entertainer gets down to 2 and a pull-out couch, and then the little cottage really sleeps 2. Or you can choose by build costs, that the little cottage, because of the material and the square footage and the framing system, is the least expensive, up to the entertainer, which has the most amount of glass and has the most amount of sliding doors, which definitely adds expense. That tends to be the most expensive of our options. And then you can choose the right finishes based on material palette between the bunkhouse, between our kind of more modern black cabin design and over to our more traditional cedar shake design. And then you can choose by maintenance difficulty. So we find that the black cabin is sort of the easiest to maintain and kind of keep it looking quite fresh, whereas the entertainer, or sorry, the cedar shake that you see on the far right, there's relatively frequent swapping of the cedar shake panels. Though if you live in those regions, coastal regions, what's really nice about this is you can do sort of a spot replacement on any area that's been weathered. And then choosing the right systems. And so when you go through the purchase process, we've accounted for the systems design for any one of these conditions, whether it's semi off-grid, or on-grid, and all of those are accounted for within our plans, which we'll review during this webinar. And so you don't need to make this decision up front because it's been accounted for within your plans, though depending on your use, whether it's going to be tapped into your existing house, you're going to operate really as sort of an on-grid system, or if you're going to be close to the road and you're going to treat this really as a house, it'll be tapped into town systems, or if you're going to be really off-grid, it'll really be like a self-sufficient structure. We're operating off of a solar system, operating off of either compost toilet or standalone leach field, and generating its own fresh water through cistern and water collection, and generating its own power through solar. Okay, so let's say you go through our purchase sequence and you buy plans. What exactly do you get? So you get 5 things. And we look at it as it's everything that your builder and your permitting office should require. The entirety of your architectural documentation from every permit office that we've been in front of, the entirety of your structural documentation for both permitting offices and your builder to understand constructability, the entirety of your systems documentation for any plumbing or electrical trades to be able to hook up your water and power systems, your full material schedules for both interior and exterior to be able to make those purchases, and then your plans and guidance. So obviously you'll get your digital copies of your plans. We'll also send you full-scale physical copies of your plans. And then you also have our guidance line. We've set up an ADU hotline that allows us to answer questions on an ongoing basis that I'll provide the number for after this. And we can also go through a consult with your builder as you get to that point. So let's check out a drawing set. Let me stop sharing this for a second, and I'll open up a sample drawing set so you can see really what you're receiving. Oops. Okay. Sharing my screen again here. And so here we are looking at a real version of our set. And in this case, you've gone through, you've selected the cottage, you've selected it in our modern barn materials finish. And the things that you'll receive are a full 24 by 36 inch set that tends to be the requirement for almost any permit office. Also, it's what your builder is going to want to use in the field. We'll include our terms of use, general notes, which is broken down by every piece of the building from all the, and this is what your contractor is going to want to review for exactly all the framing details, standard plumbing notes, standard electrical notes, standard detailing and finishing notes, and other. It'll define exactly what you've purchased here with the plan and also the material schedule. It'll include options for interior treatments, for wall paneling systems, for tile systems, for countertop systems, and flooring systems. It'll include window and door schedules with manufacturers, both with a low and high version. It'll include the entirety of our specs for both on-grid and off-grid and semi-off-grid systems, including all manufacturers, including all install details for every one of the primary systems. It'll include the entirety of our plumbing fixtures. And then it'll get into both what the permitting office, if required, and your contractor wants to see with your floor plans and loft plans, your elevations for all sides of the structure, and then very, very detailed sections through all of the systems of the cabin, including framing system, insulating system, any millwork, foundation system, exterior cladding, interior cladding, and then the entirety of your framing and structural system. This is often going to be reviewed by both your permit office and your contractor. And then sort of a diagram that shows how all these pieces come together, which tends to be quite helpful with your builder for them to understand just all of the pieces that are going to be involved. And then we zoom into details, all of our exterior systems to keep water out of the structure, to make sure that all of our wall assemblies are upholding the R values and insulating properties that are important, and all of our interior details to show millwork and how finish systems come together within the space. And then construction of our kitchen and millwork systems. A lot of this cabinetry is going to be built on site using the same materials that are used for some of the other construction. And then all of our plumbing systems and heating and cooling systems. And one of the things that you'll see here, which often comes up, is how exactly do our bathrooms work? Now, our bathrooms, we really think about as wet rooms, which is sort of a European design. It's designed for space efficiency so that we don't have to have separate structure or separate rooms for shower pan, toilet, and sink. So the entirety of our bathrooms are tiled with a common floor drain. So we have shower head, we have sink, and we have toilet in the same space. And then you'll also receive the full electrical plan. And that really accounts for everything a contractor would require and everything a town planning office would require. Let me come out of here. I'll share again. So I have my plans. Now what do I do? And so the next thing is you need to get a builder and you need to get a permit, long and short of it. And so if you're in the Catskills or the Berkshires or the Hudson Valley, HUTS can help quite a bit. We have a deep repository of contractors that are both trusted and a part of our kind of wider network, many of whom have reviewed our plans, and we can help set up those introductions with potential builders. If you're in a wider area, you have a few options between contractor, self-built, or operating as your own contractor, and we'll go through some of those. And then you're going to want to check your town's permit submission requirements. So a little bit of a cheat sheet on the questions you want to ask here. First, do your plans need an engineer stamp? They won't always. A lot of times you can self-certify and operate as a homeowner submission. But town by town, particularly in rural areas, they have their own rules. So you're going to want to put your plans in front of them and see what are the steps that need to be taken to secure permits. Can my GC submit on my behalf? Do I need a survey or a site plan for this type of structure? What are the setbacks on my lot? how far off of the lot lines do I need to build? Are guest cottages allowed at all in your area? Most areas do allow for it. Other municipalities don't. Just check your town's exact regulations. And for those of you that are looking at generating revenue or renting your structure, make sure first that short-term rentals are allowed, and follow the guidance of your town. And so, who's going to build your ADU? So there's really three approaches. There's first the general contractor approach. When working on grid and there's lots of trades and you're plugging into existing water systems, you're plugging into existing electrical systems, I really recommend going with a general contractor who's able to coordinate all of the various trades here, and can order all of your construction and finished materials on your behalf. Then there's the option where you act as your own GC. People do that all the time, particularly on a smaller structure. You would coordinate those trades, including the framing and carpentry. You would order all the construction and finished materials, which has this benefit of removing the profit and the overhead at the GC, and for you to get direct pricing on all of your materials without any of it being marked up. And last is DIY construction. These are structures that are at the scale where you absolutely could build it on your own. And any trades that you require, you could bring them in. I would still recommend, unless you are your own certified electrician or plumber, bringing in licensed professionals for those pieces. And how long will it take to build? So the short answer is, I like to say 2 months. That could certainly be the case where any given planning office, you get in your plans, and a month later, within that month, they'll review them and issue a permit. Some planning offices take 1 day. Usually they don't go more than a month in reviewing any given permit application. And then if you have all of your materials on site, your builder's there, they've started to stack the trades, you could build it within a month as well. And all of your on-site construction happens from there. Couple of caveats. There is such a thing as sluggish rural town planning offices. For any of you that live in areas like that, you might be aware of what it means to get things done. So sometimes it needs some nudging. Often you'll want to secure your contractor before permits, or it's required that your contractor is the only one who is able to be issued a permit from your town. And sometimes you might have survey or utilities prerequisites that the town really wants to see a survey beforehand, and they want a site plan in place. That's particularly the case if you're going to, say, put in a septic. That's going to have to be included as part of your submission package. And then some of the caveats on the on-site construction, window and door deliveries. Over the past 6 months, 9 months, some of those timelines have gotten really crazy with long lead times, though we're seeing them start to come down to earth, where they've gone from 16, 18 weeks back down to what we used to see in the kind of 4 to 8 week region, particularly in the standard sizes that we've specified within our ADU construction documents. Appliance and mechanical deliveries, you're going to want to account for some of that, though having the plans in place and knowing what the specifications are allow for you to get a lot of that stuff organized beforehand, and coordinating the trades, making sure that everyone's sort of coming in at the right time is going to help tighten up the timeline overall. And so the last question that I'll answer before opening it up to QA is a HUTS ADU a good investment? And we really think so. We designed them to hit certain construction marks and to appeal to a certain rental performa, and because we hope that you're able to arbitrage the cost of construction against the value that you're creating. And a little bit of how we think about this. So the first is accessible build cost. That when we break down on, say, the cottage, and I'll use the example of, say, the Western Catskills, an area that we're very familiar with, and the material cost of the day, labor cost of the day. This is a pretty accurate breakdown of pricing, where within the cottage, you'll have about $25,000 of construction materials, about $9,000, $10,000 in finished materials, a $5,000 or so cost on fenestration, windows and door costs, equipment and appliances, which also includes hot water heater and some of your other your solar kit, will be around 7,500. Labor estimate in the kind of 15,000 range, and design plans and single use license from HUTS. And there's a good comfortable budget thinking about this in the $65,000 range, $64,000. And then there's this other side, which is what is the boosted equity on top of that? That now you've built this structure on top of your land or plugged into your existing home at $64,000 at around $213 per square foot. But in that area, we're seeing for our homes and similar around a $500 per square foot sale price or appraisal value, which at 300 square feet on our cottage, 200 and then 100 in the loft, has a estimated value created of $150,000, which minus your cost up front is around the $86,000 not necessarily profit, but stored equity in your overall property from building this ADU. And then the last part of it is rent roll. A lot of folks I know are looking to rent their place, and the last part of the pro forma is how much could I rent it for? And judging by structures that are out there and comps, we see these the cottage being able to produce in this area around $275 per night. I think it's a accurate estimate to think that you could get 15 nights per month of occupancy, which adds up to an annual gross of $49,500 in rent roll. Assume 15% expenses at $7,500 per year, and you have $42,000 in net profit on your rental, which gives you a payback period of about 18 months. And so that was a big part of our goal. How can we design a structure that produces value and equity the day it's completed, and also has a 1.5 year or shorter payback period and starts to kick off a healthy profit from there. And so let me open it up now to Q&A. Those are some of the big questions that we have, but I'm sure you have more of them. Just type them into the dialogue on the lower right. I see some already came in here. And I'll start to field them now. So the first is from Joe DeVoe, who asks, please discuss off-grid solutions where well and septic will be installed, but access to power is limited, cost prohibitive. Yeah, great question. So, in that case, you would use standard plumbing as documented within our construction documents, and standard waste systems to utilize the septic. But your power system is going to be our off-grid kit that we recommend, which basically provides 7,200 kilowatt hours. We'll have a battery bank and needs limited clearing to make sure that you get and should be south facing to make sure that you get constant battery recharge and enough sunlight throughout the year to be able to account for almost any appliance you might put into the space. Now, things like toaster oven tend to be a little bit, or washer dryer, things like this that are heating up very, very quickly and use resistance. We would recommend shying away from those, but you'll see in our structural documents, in our construction documents, what our target kilowatt hours are. And then you can basically run a calculation on all of the appliances and chargeables that you'll include in your structure and make sure that you're more than accounted for through 7,200 kilowatt hours. Let me come down to the bottom. Can the plans be designed to be ADA? Okay, a lot coming in here. So let me try and pick out ones that I hadn't really addressed. Is there a price difference with the exterior finish choice? Yeah, I would say that the cedar, depending on where you are in the country, can be more expensive. So if you're outside of the Pacific Northwest or outside of the far Northeast, cedar is just not all that common as a material. So you'll have a decent amount of shipping costs and import costs. The other materials tend to be quite readily available, particularly in the Northeast, where for our exterior, we tend to spec hemlock. How many ADUs can you typically put on a lot? Really depends on the lot. Again, this is something to ask your town planning office. If you can have multiple structures, if you can get a special use permit for, say, a camp designation or organizational designation, or operating as a hotel or kind of multi-unit campsite. Was included in the expenses in the pro forma. Yeah, so property tax, no. That is going to really depend on the size of your lot, how much improved value the ADU impacts the parcel's appraisal or assessment. But things that are included are cleaning fees, utilities, turnover costs. You might have a manager. And so we use 15% as a good estimate. Correct. This is a note from David, just to clarify, when we buy a HUTS plan, it includes the cost for materials, finishing, et cetera, and we just need to pay additional services for a builder or contractor. Correct. In your timeline, you mentioned buying before finding land. Isn't it better to buy land first? It depends. A lot of folks purchase their plans and have them on hand as a way to evaluate the parcels that they're looking at. They assess their parcels based on if they're going to build their ADU on it. And if you're looking for land and you're in our region, certainly check out our land subscription service. Is a refrigerator available in the bunkhouse design? Yeah, that's accounted for as a low voltage, low draw mini fridge that can be incorporated within the bunkhouse. Can you discuss the ladder and whether it presents an approval problem? Well, it depends what you mean. I mean, I think that the loft space, if you're going for no permit approval and under 144 square feet, the loft space with the ladder will be included. And then the small cottage would be larger than 144 square feet in that case, in which case you most likely will need a permit. Can the plans be designed to be ADA? Yeah, so I think that the best one to choose in that case is really either the cottage or the entertainer, both of which have dedicated separate bedrooms that are on the ground floor and can be accessed. All of the functions of the structure can be accessed on the ground floor, and you can essentially remove the loft entirely and just omit it from the build. Can the little cottage accommodate a fireplace? Absolutely. We are actually building a little cottage ourselves and have specified a small wood burning fireplace that doesn't kick out an enormous number of BTUs, so it'll be quite comfortable through all seasons. Ho Kyung Lee asks when to do a land survey before purchasing the plan for better landscape design or before construction. Well, it depends. I mean, I think that if you already have, we often recommend a land survey as a contingency of purchasing your lot. And so if you're going out and going to go buy a lot, do a survey first. It'll help you determine the lot lines. It'll help you understand some of the conditions of your parcel beforehand. And it should really be a contingency of sale. If you already own a lot, you may already own a survey as well. But I think it's always a good thing to have a fresh survey on hand. Helps you understand grade, topography, where the lot lines are and where the potential offsets are. And if you have any special conditions like wetlands or rock outcroppings or other things that need to be accounted for before construction. Joe DeVoe, can you mix a metal roof on a cedar shake body? Absolutely. And those details would be provided within both cases. So our exterior details for roofing and exterior cladding are we've accounted for all of the exterior finish materials in our exterior details across all of the sets you might buy. Is there a way to view the ADUs or some type of showroom or prototype at a location? Darren, you're absolutely speaking my language. I would love to have a storefront where you can just walk into a full-size ADU, but I think the first one you'll be able to really visit, because it'll be on our property, will be in the Western Catskills in Sullivan County, and it'll be both available for visitation and rent once ours is completed. Are the materials purchased directly from HUTS, or does the contractor supply all the materials? None of the materials will come through us. And that's because we don't make a markup on them. You could actually order the entire takeoff list and all of the equipment and everything that we specified through both the structural system, exterior system, and mechanical and electrical systems directly from the suppliers and vendors that we've accounted for. Or you can make them part of your contractor's role, where they will purchase all of these things and have them all in one spot to streamline the construction process. Can you show what the bathrooms would look like? Yeah, actually, let me just pull up a animation and we can go through how those work. So I'm going to make that the last QA question. The last was from David here. Do you have contractor recos in Sullivan County for a Glen Space site? Absolutely. Sullivan County is a spot where we have a pretty deep bench of folks that we trust. If there aren't any more questions, let me field Samantha Platt's question, and we can go through a quick animation of what our bathrooms feel like. Let me stop sharing for a second. Great, and if you can see this is just a walkthrough of this, our cottage design. You can see it has and I'll just walk us through this, but here you can see some of the systems. This would be a fully off-grid system that includes rooftop PVs. It has outdoor shower, which I just think is a nice thing. Has a outboard tankless water heater, which you can see here. This one is rendered in black stained hemlock. Now you can outfit this living area in any number of ways. Dining space, living room, a mix, full kitchen with a fridge below, propane that services the 2-burner cooktop, full sink. This is kind of standard equipment across all of our designs. Ladder up to the loft, not shown here, but the design accounts for a railing. Some of our designs, as you saw, they have the full width loft to account for additional living and sleeping space above. And then coming into the bathroom, you can see we've got kind of fully tiled. The toilet on the left, drain at the bottom, shower above, and then sink forward, and then close the door in that space, and it's a fully watertight, waterproofed wet room. So it's 1:44. We went a little bit over time. If there are no other questions, I think I'm going to close down this version of our first ADU webinar. Right after this, for everyone who was able to join or registered and wasn't able to join, I'll send out a few things. I'm going to send out a recording of this presentation. I'll send out our ADU hotline where you can ask additional questions. I'll send out a link again to our purchase form to start your ADU purchase, ADU plans purchase. And I'll also send out our catalog once again, so you can pour through some of the options and make sure that you choose the right design for you, for your area and your region. Thank you so much, everyone. Always a pleasure to talk to everyone, and hope to hear from you soon, and have fun with your ADU. We're really excited to see what everyone here builds.